Hello and welcome to the YYC Soccer Podcast. My name is Jason Kmet and my co-host is Scott Strasser. Hi, Scott.
Hi, Jason. How are you doing?
It's another good night, just another night in August, and not much new to report this week. Just looking forward to do another episode of the podcast, I guess.
Yeah, me too. We're back to our usual schedule, and I'm excited to chat about some soccer-related goings-on in Calgary, Alberta.
If you are a new listener to our podcast, Scott, what is the YYC Soccer Podcast all about?
Okay. We focus on soccer in Calgary at the amateur, collegiate, and professional levels. We talk about the teams and the players from Calgary's soccer community, from the grassroots and amateur leagues up to the university and professional teams.
This week, our topics will include, we're going to talk about Cavalry and their match last weekend against Ottawa, and we're going to preview their match coming up on Saturday versus HFX. We're also going to talk about Calgary Blizzard going off to interprovincials in Hamilton, and we also have an interview this week. Who's our interview with?
Yeah, just the other day, we had a good chat with Kendall Showers. She was the League One Alberta's top scorer this season with 9 goals for Callies United. She also got to play a couple of games for Foothills WFC on one of their road trips to the U.S. in the United Women's Soccer season. So it was great to catch up with her, talk about her career. She has a bit of an interesting story, so I'm excited to share that interview with listeners.
For sure, and we'll get to that in a little bit, but let's start things off with talking about Cavalry FC.
Hello, Fraser Aird here, guys, and you are listening to the YYC Soccer Podcast.
Yeah, so they went east to Ottawa last weekend, and we were, chatting last week about could Cavalry replicate their successful performance against Vancouver FC, and they did. They got a 2-1 win against Atletico, which is really impressive considering Ottawa are still top of the table. But Cavalry, they did well to turn out a 2-1 win.
Yeah, and I guess right now the obvious headline from this game was Ali Musi, quite the triumphant return, I would say.
Absolutely. This was Musi's 5th game of the season. And if you think about the fact we're 17 games in, he has, barely been able to feature for Cavalry. And, he's one of the team's most important offensive threats. And he got subbed in for this one and almost immediately made a big impact, right? He scored in the 72nd minute. Pretty big deflection, but I think he did enough to deserve, credit for scoring that, taking the short corner, overlapping, taking a shot from just outside the 18. That kind of, attacking creativity is exactly what Cavalry has been lacking this season. And while Ottawa did press and equalize about 15 minutes later, looking like it was going to end 1-1, yet again between these two teams, Musi produced another moment of magic just a couple minutes after that.
I was impressed with the first goal, but the second goal, yeah, that was really fun to watch and a real display of skill.
It reminded me of the kinds of goals you'd see like Lionel Messi score 10 years ago when he would just, dribble past a couple of players and curl it in far post. But or Arjen Robben is another player who scored a decent amount of goals like this. So what happened was Ali Musi intercepted an Ottawa player's pass. He was along the right wing. He dribbled inside, beat 2 defenders, and then still outside the box, he curled a shot into the bottom left corner. So really nice goal and quite the way to win it for Cavalry in one of the last minutes of the game.
And from the perspective of looking at the table, like this was massive because, it reined Ottawa in. It brought them back into the pack and brought Cavalry, really into the mix even more than they already were. And it wasn't that long ago when it looked like Ottawa was just going to run away and hide with the regular season championship. But that's not so much the case anymore.
No, they're only a point ahead of York United at the top of the table. They're still on a pretty mediocre run of form. And York is, breathing down their necks. But Cavalry is now up to 4th place, and they're only 5 points behind Atletico with 11 games to go. So really good work from them. I think this was the first time this year that Cavalry produced 2 wins in a row because they beat Vancouver last week. Yeah, I mean, a strong showing from Cavalry. Ottawa did, control a lot of the play in terms of like shots and possession, but Cavalry's defense was pretty decent. Ottawa did outshoot Cavalry in this game, and they did lead in possession, but Cavalry did a great job to be clinical when they needed to in the second half, and probably deservedly got the 3 points. And yeah, like we've mentioned, this keeps them in contention for a top four finish.
Definitely. And we'll see if they can continue on with their role here. They play Halifax Wanderers on Saturday afternoon at Spruce Meadows.
Yeah, I'm excited for this one. Halifax is in last place in the table right now, and Calgary's coming in with a lot of positive momentum. So you have to figure that they're going to be able to produce a win. But Halifax does have a pretty decent squad. They just signed Sean Rea, which is a big move on their part. It's been hard to predict matches this season, so I don't even want to say what I think will happen because I've been wrong so many times this season. But no, I'm excited to go. I haven't been to a Cavalry game in a while, it feels like.
I'm hoping we're going to see maybe a little bit more of Ali Musi. I'm not sure if he would get the start at this point, but and also, a couple other injuries like Eric Kobza. I'm not sure how far away he is at this point. And I noticed that Charlie Trafford didn't dress last week. I think that was the first match all season where he wasn't in the 18.
The commentators did mention his absence during the broadcast. I think it was either injury or illness. We haven't obviously seen the pregame press conference yet, so we don't know who's in and who's out. But I know you wrote a note down here, Jason, about the transfer window closing, so I think we should mention that. Obviously, we'll close right after we finish recording this. The announcements of anyone signed could come later.
Right. Is it possible that a few hours after we release this on Friday morning, there could be news? Yeah, I think it's quite possible. But Myer Bevan, I don't know if you follow Myer Bevan on Instagram, Scott, but every couple days he puts out a video of him like running and lifting weights and looking like he's getting back into playing shape. As far as I'm aware, his rights are still held by Cavalry, so he can't do much unless there's some kind of transfer.
Yeah, it'll be neat to see what happens with Bevan. I did ask Tommy Wheeldon Jr. during a previous press conference if there's a chance that he could feature again for Cavalry, and he said he didn't think so. Talked about how he'd gone back to New Zealand for family-related reasons. So I know you've speculated off air that he might be signing for a team in New Zealand quite imminently.
He's from Auckland, New Zealand, and Auckland just got an expansion team in the Australian A-League. So the team, Auckland FC, they're the second New Zealand entry in that league. And they've just started their preseason. I think they already played a friendly, but they're pretty early on in preseason at this point. And, it just seems like such a no-brainer. His hometown team in the A-League, a decent quality league. It just all seems to add up and make sense. But, well, we haven't seen anything yet. But, yeah, I have been kind of predicting that one for weeks and weeks. So I'm still sticking with it. I think there's still a really good chance it's going to happen because for someone who's as social media savvy as Myer Bevan, and with the transfer window here in Canada where his rights are being held is over tomorrow, like there's got to be some kind of move happening. Otherwise, why would he be posting these videos of him getting in shape? If he's getting in shape and then he's going to end up not playing for the rest of the year, that seems kind of pointless. And like I mentioned before, he's a social media savvy dude, and I'm pretty sure all those workout videos are trying to tease something.
Yeah, leading up to something. And you know what? You've had some really good accurate predictions so far in recent months. So I wouldn't be surprised to see, your prediction come true once again. But anyway, I did want to mention before we segue into our interview, someone departed Cavalry, but it wasn't a player. We found out earlier this week, or maybe it was a week ago, but Oliver Minitel is heading to Orlando City.
Yeah, that caught me off guard a little bit. I guess, from an outsider's perspective, how would you know about these kind of moves typically that they're in the works? But another example that Tommy Wheeldon Jr. has talked about, the development of not just players, but of coaches and front office staff and all of the other positions associated in the soccer industry. And Oliver Minitel is another example of that. He's been involved with recruitment and player personnel, and obviously he's impressed. So he's now down in Orlando. So good on him for sure. Congrats.
Yeah, he's going to be working for the MLS club as a scouting coordinator, similar position to what he was doing for Cavalry in this last year as head of recruitment and player development. Kudos to Minitel, and we wish him all the best as he goes down to Florida.
This is Kendall Showers, and you're listening to the YYC Soccer Podcast.
All right, so I guess we'll segue now into our interview for the week. As previously mentioned, we chatted with Kendall Showers, the Callies United player. We've mentioned her a lot in the last few months, haven't we, Jason? Because she's had a really strong last couple of months.
Definitely. She's had a really great year with Callies United. And yeah, it is an unusual story in the sense that, she didn't really have much of a university career and really stepped away from the game for a long time. And now, at 28, which is older than most of the players in League One Alberta, all of a sudden jumped into playing a high level and excelled.
Yeah, it's really impressive that she was able to have such an impact, considering that she's been away from the game, at least at a competitive level, for several years now. So, but I guess we'll let her kind of speak for herself in terms of her career development, and we'll run that interview now. I'd like to welcome Kendall Showers to the podcast. Kendall was a member of the Callies United League One women's team this summer, and she was actually the league's scoring leader with 9 goals. She also played for Foothills WFC on one of their road trips this season and scored against the Santa Clarita Blue Heat. She formerly played with the Dinos and is from Calgary, I believe. Kendall, thank you for coming on our podcast.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
So we like to start by getting a bit of background. Growing up, who did you play for? I know you played for the Dinos in 2014, but as you mentioned before we started recording, you had a long break between then and recently getting back into competitive soccer. So can you kind of walk us through your career to date?
Sure, yeah. I grew up in Calgary. I actually started playing for Celtics and NSD, where I had met Sean Lowther, the head coach of Callies United, and Troy Flannery, who was the head coach of Dinos when I went there. But honestly, never really played too competitively until high school, and ended up getting a scholarship to play at U of C. My experience there wasn't the greatest. I wasn't, I guess, committed enough, or maybe mentally or emotionally ready for what they had expected. So I did my 1 year and just decided to focus on school. After that, kind of fell out of love with the game, I think, a little bit. And it wasn't until, I guess, maybe 3 or 4 years ago that I ended up coaching for Foothills, an AYSL team or APDL team, and fell in love with the game again, kind of re-sparked my passion. And this year, League One, the second year, I decided to kind of take that step and prove to myself, that I could do it again and take the opportunity to do so. So when I saw Sean Lowther was coaching Callies, I thought, why not? Here I am.
And as a youth, which clubs did you play for?
Yeah, so I played with NSD, and then NSD folded. Then we I did go to Southwest United for 2 years, and then ended up playing my final year at Foothills.
Congrats on leading League One Alberta in goals this year.
Thank you.
So what was your key to success? Like you've mentioned, this was your first year in League One. Well, it's the second year of the whole league in general, but any thoughts as to what led you to being able to score so many goals this year?
I think the biggest thing for me is I've always been strong on and off the ball, I guess. And just like my physicality is something different that I bring to the field. I'm pretty tenacious and I don't give up. So I think sometimes that's harder to defend, as well as just I do, make runs behind defenders, and I'm quick, so I can catch them when they're not looking and then go from there.
So, as mentioned off the top, you also played some games for Foothills WFC this summer. I'm curious what you thought of maybe the comparison between the level of play in League One and United Women's Soccer, both in terms of speed of play, physicality of play, the amount of traveling, and all that.
The transition, speed of play is different for UWS. Obviously, a lot of the players there are experienced and used to playing at a higher pace, 1-2 touch. League One, I feel like obviously there are a lot of younger players who haven't maybe had the experience in an 11v11 competitive environment. So, decision making isn't as quick. That was kind of the biggest thing I, even struggled with my first game or so, was just making those decisions fast. Otherwise, they're on you immediately, and not something that's hard to adjust to, but definitely something that I hadn't been as used to playing League One.
When you were on both these teams, the Callies United team and playing for Foothills in their UWS matches, you were one of the veteran players. You talked about how there were a lot of younger players on there. What was it like being one of the older players on the team, and like, how did that work out? Did you take a leadership role? How did you feel about that?
Yeah, so I, stepped into the team assuming that that's kind of the role I would take. I mean, I'm 28, and I think one of the younger girls, she's in 08. So obviously the age gap is pretty large. It's funny because me coaching the team that I had coached, a lot of those girls actually play for the HPP team now. Like the Clara Monk and Reese Kincaid played for UWS and the Foothills team. So those are the girls I coached, and then I end up playing against them, and it's funny how that all works. Yeah, definitely came in as that leadership role and stepped into it, being okay with that because I do have that experience coaching and playing at, I guess, just experience playing in general.
So on a similar note, Kendall, I wanted to ask how you balanced soccer this summer and with your day job, because I'm pretty sure, are you a social media strategist? Do I have that right?
No, so I'm actually a fundraiser at a nonprofit, but it's, social media, community engagement, but yeah, mainly fundraising. So I do have the 9 to 5 job, and that was actually one of the main things that I was struggling with, deciding if I wanted to play League One, was the commitment, travel on Fridays to Edmonton, or the 2 to 3 nights a week practices, but definitely worth it. And I'm kind of sad it's all over because now I don't really have much to look forward to during the evenings. But yeah, you make it work, and I'm lucky to have a job that's flexible and allows me to, take time off when I need it. So it was okay.
Are there any soccer players out there, or any athletes in general? I guess we're in the middle of the Olympics right now. Are there any athletes out there that inspire you? And if so, how have they influenced your approach to the game?
Yeah, good question. I think recently, with all of the increase in opportunities for girls in sport, women in sport, I think just that in general has really inspired me to play. I mean, I was in England last summer with the AYSL team, and we were there for the World Cup, and seeing the Lionesses, make it as far as they did was an inspiration to me, and made me want to play higher level. But no one specifically, but just I think the opportunities in general at this point, and seeing how we're getting more exposure in the game and that sort of thing is what's making it more interesting and better for the next generation.
So Kendall, considering how well the season went for you personally, I'm curious, did that spark a revival in your passion for playing, and did it kind of reignite any goals or aspirations you have for soccer in the coming years? Especially, considering the Northern Super League is coming up pretty soon.
Yeah, I think going into the season, I wasn't sure how things were going to go. I mean, I'll be honest, with my experience previously, I had a lot of regrets, not playing university, and this was an opportunity for me to prove to myself I could do it and take that second chance. And with my success, I guess, and knowing that I'm 28, maybe I have 3-4 more good years to play. I am interested, I think, in playing at the highest level I can, and seeing the NSL coming to Calgary and across Canada. I mean, if the opportunity arises, I think I would hop on it right away because I wouldn't want to regret saying no at this point, but I'm not really sure what that looks like in the next couple months. I think I'll make some decisions and my goal would be to play just at the highest level I possibly can.
We talked already about the break that you took. What was it like really to get back into soccer at such a high level after the break? Because, you mentioned you sort of got re-inspired into the game the last few years, but this was really this year in League One and in UWS was, I think, the first time you've really stepped it up into that level. And how was that, just going from like 0 to 60 right away?
It's a good question. Honestly, I was playing soccer this past winter, 6 times a week, but it was playing kind of just co-ed and Div 1 7v7. And so my first game, I would say I was a little bit nervous. I just the whole training season before we even started, I was even stressed about whether I was going to start or not. And I mean, that's my own personal thing, but once that first game passed and I knew I could play the 90 minutes, and I ended up playing against some of the UWS girls anyways. We had our first game against Foothills, and it was after that game that Tux actually came up to me and had talked to me about playing UWS. So once that, happened, and once I scored my first goal, I kind of got right into it, and monkey was off my back and felt like I was in the right place.
That's great. Well, that was our last question written down for you here, Kendall. But is there anything else about this past few months playing League One Alberta with Callies United or a couple of games with Foothills WFC that you'd like to mention before we end the interview?
I think the main thing I just want to mention is how, proud I am of the team. And obviously I know you guys had kind of kept up with the season, and, we were kind of the underdogs coming in with this being our first season. We weren't really sure how things were going to go, but, we had some grinders, and some games didn't go our way, but other games I think we shocked some people. And so I'm looking forward to seeing how the team grows, and look forward to, if that's where I end up playing next year and being a leader on the team again. But yeah, just overall just had a great season, and the league was awesome, and UWS was great as well. That experience was something I can add to the resume. So, just really grateful that I can still play at this level and that I have the opportunity to do so.
Right on. Well, thanks again for coming on this week, and congratulations on all the goals you scored and the games that you and Callies United won. We'll be following along to see what you do next.
Awesome. Thanks, guys.
Okay. Thanks very much to Kendall Showers for taking the time to do the interview. And it'll be interesting to see what happens with her career over the next while. There's certainly more possibilities than ever for opportunities in Canada, for sure. And the other thing I was going to mention, Scott, I noticed this after we concluded the interview, is that she played for One Up United in the national championships representing Alberta in 2023. So I didn't even realize that. But yeah, so, I'm a big futsal guy. I love futsal. And so I thought it was kind of neat that I realized that afterwards, but didn't get a chance to ask her about that in the interview. But thought I'd mention it.
Yeah, that was one of the first things that we covered as a podcast. So kind of cool to see a little bit full circle, in terms of we probably watched her play without even realizing it, and then ended up interviewing her a year and a half later.
Yep, I think that is true.
Hi guys, this is Kareem Bashir Bey. You're listening to the YYC Soccer Podcast. Have a great day.
So staying on the League One theme, we'll mention that Calgary Blizzard is now in Hamilton for the interprovincial championships. They're one of 4 League One teams competing for, I guess you could call it a national League One title, couldn't you?
The winner does end up representing Canada in the new women's club championship. So I guess that probably is a reasonable way to describe it.
Yeah. So Blizzard will play their first match Friday, that being tonight, against Whitecaps, 6:30 p.m. And it's not going to be a very long tournament. The final is going to be on Sunday, so there's going to be a quick turnaround between games. But it does look like these matches are going to be televised on One Soccer, so we will be able to watch how Blizzard fares.
A very short tournament, and essentially you win your first game and you're in the finals. So, but this first match is going to be really, really tough. Whitecaps are a very solid team, and it's certainly a daunting first test, I think.
And I know, Jason, you reached out to Blizzard's head coach, Diogo Raposo, to ask who will be playing for Blizzard this weekend because, of course, the preseason training camps have begun for a lot of NCAA teams and some U Sports teams as well. So we were questioning in recent episodes who was actually going to be playing. And he sent you their full roster. So I thought we could maybe rattle off some of the players who we know will be competing for Blizzard this weekend.
For sure. And it is a mix of players that have completed their university eligibility and also some players that currently are about to start their U Sports season. There's definitely some heavy Dinos content on here for sure. But I guess the first person to mention on the list is their number one, Lauren Houghton, who's the goalkeeper. She's been the starting keeper the last couple of years and former podcast guest. She was with us after the 2023 League One final. That was the one where she scored the penalty and then she defended a penalty to win the championship. That was pretty cool.
Yeah, and there's a lot of Dinos players like you mentioned. McKenna Walker is another one who's going to be playing this weekend. And then you've got Grace Moore, Brooke Batty. Yeah, but a lot of current and recently graduated UFC players. Not the only program represented on Blizzard's roster, of course.
We did see that Bryn Mortensen, who's been pretty regular on the Blizzard team this year, the League One team. She's with McEwen, and she's going to be with the team. And I know Kaylin Roberts is from University of Saskatchewan's with the team, and Ashlyn Phillips, who's been with UBC. She's going to be also there, and she's been a pretty regular contributor as well. I think she's played most of the matches this year.
And one interesting player to mention, Kaylin Cha Yang, who's only a 2008 born player, and she'll be the youngest on the team.
That's definitely going to be a good experience for her, for sure. And actually, two other names I want to mention is Rachel Barlow is with the team, and I think got to mention another former podcast guest. And another name which caught my attention was Rihanna Morani. And I looked her up. She's kind of got an interesting story. She's from Edmonton, and she played university soccer with University of South Florida. And after she finished up playing soccer there, she ended up going to med school, and she's now practicing physician here in Calgary. And I guess when she's not seeing patients, she's still training, and she's going to go with the club to Hamilton.
Yeah, talk about a high achiever. Hey, I mean, on and off the pitch, so good for her. Yeah, I'm excited to see how this group fares. Obviously, they have a really tough start to the weekend, playing the Whitecaps on Friday, but I know we'll be rooting for them
for sure. Thank you for listening to the YYC Soccer Podcast. You can have this podcast downloaded to your device as soon as it becomes available by subscribing on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or other podcasting platforms. Check out our website at yycsoccer.com, where you can look through our episode archives, and you can also find other options to listen, including our new YouTube channel. And we also have links on there to buy Scott's book online. You can leave a question or comment in the Contact Us section of our website. You can also interact with us on social media, such as Twitter or Instagram, where our username is YYC Soccer 403. Thanks for listening.